Here's a headline from the Epoch Times. Joe Biden's Christmas-themed call for kindness, a stark contrast to speeches leading to the midterms. Ooh, it's amazing how the left can compartmentalize things that they have done so that they can act like they never happened when they accuse you, their opponents, of the exact same things. Let's get into this. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the channel, where we are the antidote to the daily onslaught of radical woke Marxist propaganda. So, Joe Biden just implored the people to participate in simple acts of kindness that can lift the spirit, provide comfort, and perhaps maybe even save a life. So this is Christmas. Let's spread a little kindness, Biden said. He ran with a message that encouraged unity, something he did during his inauguration speech, but never actually came through with, okay? So he says, our politics have gotten so angry, so mean, so partisan. And too often, we see each other as enemies, not as neighbors, as Democrats or Republicans, not as fellow Americans. We've become too divided, he said. Is this man kidding? Seriously, he's going to lecture us about being angry, mean, and partisan? Joe Biden is the epitome, the embodiment of angry, mean, and partisan. He continued, but as tough as these times have been, if we look a little closer, we see bright spots all across the country, the strength, the determination, the resilience that's long defined America. Biden then said that COVID no longer controls our lives, even though he's trying to weasel in some more masks, mandated masks. In fact, more people were working than ever before. And we encouraged Americans to really look at each other, not as Democrats or Republicans, not as members of Team Blue, but as we really are. He didn't even say Team Red, but as we really are, fellow Americans, fellow human beings, worthy of being treated with dignity and respect. This from a man who gave a demonic speech against at least 74 million Americans outside of where the Constitution was written and debated, ratified. Independence Hall, Philadelphia. Now, let's remind everybody of what this SOB said outside of Independence Hall on that fateful night. He said, what we're seeing now is either the beginning or the death knell of an extreme MAGA philosophy. It's not just Trump. It's an entire philosophy that underpins the I'm going to say something. It's like semi-fascism. Fascism, one of the tenets of fascism is they silence the opposition. Well, now we know that the Biden administration has been working weekly in censorship meetings, and the FBI has been working closely with all the social media tech tyrant companies that have been censoring conservatives' free speech for the entire time that Biden's been in office. Okay, so that's a fascist. A fascist is someone who also goes to the government, works with a private corporation and forces them to do things that they can't do themselves, like, for example, violating First Amendment free speech rights. So they force a private company to do it. That's fascism. But he calls us MAGA people. I'm a MAGA Republican. He calls us semi-fascists. On September 1st, Biden stood in front of Independence Hall in Philadelphia and continued his barrage against Trump supporters of the former president's views, okay, of Trump's views. He says, now I want to be very clear up front. Not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans are MAGA Republicans. Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology. Yeah, like lower taxes, more jobs, right? More investment, more savings, easier to feed your family. Yeah, those are really extreme ideology, right? He continued. He said, I know because I've been able to work with these mainstream Republicans. Now, translation, mainstream Republican means rhino loser, like Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger. On the other side would be Mitch McConnell, all right? Mitt Romney. Take your pick, right? He then goes on and says, but there is no question that the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And that is a threat to this country. So they're either not even a majority of Republicans, or They're the ones that are dominating and intimidating people, right? You can't have it both ways. All right, so he continues. They refuse to accept these results of a free election. Well, why would they? Joe Biden didn't get 81 million votes. He got 81 million ballots. And they're working right now, as I speak, in state after state to give power to decide elections in America to partisans and cronies, empowering election deniers to undermine democracy itself. What he's talking about, he's talking about how normal human beings react when they feel like they've been cheated, okay? What they do is they then create laws inside the states that are called election integrity laws so that the irregularities that happened in 2020 will never happen again. Now, Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution gives sole power of election laws to the state legislatures. Now, it also says that the Congress can intervene from time to time. Now, what that means is, like, for example, when they had to do the Voting Rights Act, because the Democrats were so damn racist in the South, that they kept making racist laws. So the Congress had to act and had to create the Voting Rights Act, all the titles that were to protect minorities from the Democrats, okay? So he goes on to say that MAGA forces, do you hear the language that he uses? MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love. Nobody wants to do that. And second of all, he talks about the right to choose. It was the U.S. Supreme Court that ruled on the Dobbs case to shut down Roe v. Wade. But Roe v. Wade was a lie in 1973. The court lied in 73 and said that they magically found a right to abortion in the Constitution that isn't there. Okay, this had nothing to do with the Republican Party. And I don't care if Trump put the last three on the court and they were pro-life. The fact of the matter is that they were pro-Constitution. But you won't hear that from the Democrats. Okay, so this is a man who said this, that they want to take us backwards. Okay, this is a man who's talking to us about the need to get rid of fossil fuels in our country. So he's taking us back to the 1800s before the use of oil and gas in our daily lives. Okay? This guy talks about taking us backwards, and yet he wants to promote a green technology that doesn't exist yet. There is no green technology yet that can take over for fossil fuels, and yet he says we're the ones that want to go back in time. What he means is MAGA Republicans are the ones that want to right all the wrongs that the Democrats did over the last century. Okay? He said they promote authoritarian leaders. Look at him. And they fan the flames of political violence that are a threat to our personal rights, to the pursuit of justice, to the rule of law, the very soul of the country. It's demonic that he would say these things. He told black Americans that if they didn't know whether they wanted to vote for Trump or him, that they weren't black. He said, they ain't black, right? He sent dozens of dog whistles to the left to go attack MAGA Republicans in his speeches. His vice president promoted an organization that crowdfunded for bail money to release rioters back in the George Floyd Summer of Love riots in 2020. He tried to force vaccine mandates on Americans who did not want to take experimental medicine that, according to doctors, does not work. He told us that if you get the jab, you won't get COVID, and yet he's gotten it twice after he was fully vaccinated and boosted. He harmed our energy sector without consent of the people and spent us into an inflation that is hurting working class families. He wants to talk about an authoritarian. He did all these things without our say-so. Nobody voted for this. And then he had the gall to say, MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution. They do not obey the rule of law. They do not recognize the will of the people. This from a man who daily grabs a copy of the Constitution, lays it on the ground, and defecates on it. That's what he does. He says they look at the mob that stormed the United States Capitol on January 6th, brutally attacking law enforcement, not as insurrectionists who placed a dagger to the throat of democracy, but they look at themselves as patriots. Does anyone think for a second that Joe Biden wrote that line? Do you really think he wrote that? He doesn't even know what the hell he's reading. And they say that their MAGA failure to stop the peaceful transfer of power after the 2020 election as preparation for 2022 and 2024 elections. Let's remember something here. Donald Trump never got his peaceful transfer of power. The Democrats attacked him with lies from the moment he came down the escalator. To this day, we still have Democrats and media hacks who say that Trump stole the 2016 election with the help of Russia and Vladimir Putin. They dogged Trump for all 4 years of his presidency. Where was his peaceful transfer of power? According to a Harvard Caps Harris poll, 60% of the American people believe that Biden's speech that day at Independence Hall divided the nation. So less than a week before the midterms, Biden said in his speech that extreme MAGA Republicans aim to question not only the legitimacy of past elections and that democracy is on the ballot this year. This is called projectionism. Outside of the riot on January 6th, the Democrats cannot point to a system of political violence coming from Republicans. But we can point to a definite history of violence coming from the Democrats and the left. And now we know that Nancy Pelosi was involved in the creation and the editing of the January 6th security plan, the one that failed miserably because it was created and edited to fail miserably. And Chuck Schumer signed on to that, from what I hear. And they don't have a leg to stand on, but that's what we're listening to now. We're listening to these people project everything they do and believe onto the Republican side. So now we know that the Biden administration, especially the commander-in-chief there, is full of crap when he calls for special acts of kindness during the Christmas season, when he is one of the meanest hombres that has ever sat in the Oval Office. Okay, so that's it. Thanks a lot. Thanks for spending time with us. We'll see you in the next one.